got it going.
Okay, now rotate it so we really know for sure what you mean. All right. All right, well, welcome to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. We're about to get things underway. I should have the script up, but I was too busy goofing off. So it's one of these tabs. And no one's going to cover for me. So I'm just going to vamp here for a moment and say welcome to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. I don't know what the next part is. I always read it.
I'm getting it.
I've got it up here.
This net takes place.
Keep going.
You got the rest?
No, keep going.
This net takes place every Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. We would like to thank everyone who has made the North Georgia GMRS Network the most expansive and active GMRS network in the country. Your net control tonight is WRWM 344, Blue Ridge 63, and my name is Mike.
In Atlanta 946, WQIR 514, my name is Justin.
Atlanta 947, WQIR 514. My name's Julie.
Atlanta 750, WRMR 367. My name is Jeff, and
WRMR 367, Atlanta 751. This is Kate.
It's a full house tonight.
It is a full house tonight, so good stuff. What's next?
What repeaters are we using?
well, what's our RF coverage?
Yeah, I was going to say,
guys gotta
this
get your
is
act-
out of order.
You guys got to get your act together.
Tonight, our RF coverage encompasses 176.5 billion square yards. On the net, you can talk about your day's activities, radio equipment, or anything else you think we'd like to hear. This is a family-based network, so we encourage you to get your families involved. Once the floor is open, it is permissible to address other members of the net by name or tactical unit number. Your FCC call sign is only required when you sign in and out of the net. So let's talk about announcements. Do we have any announcements tonight?
Yeah, let's get some catch up.
Should we catch up?
Yeah, we should catch up.
Let's break.
Let's break, and we'll turn it over.
This is WRMR 367, Atlanta 751. Kate from high atop Mount Waleski, live in Studio C, with this week's Catch Up with Kate, the latest NGGMRS sauce. GMRS news that we can all relish. The next Skywarn topic will be about upper atmosphere charts. Skywarn training nets are for the Chattanooga region only. If you have an interest in Skywarn, find a local Skywarn group near you. Skywarn nets are on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. only on the northern segment of the North Georgia GMRS network. Materials for discussion, aka homework, is available at noaa.gov/jetstream. Also, the Skywarn training class will be tomorrow, February 9th at 6 p.m. at Memorial Hospital. Pre-registration is required. Georgia Skywarn does not issue a Storm Spotter ID number, but Tennessee residents will be issued a Skywarn Spotter number upon completion of the class. The Chattanooga Lunch Brunch will meet on Friday, February 16th at Champy's, East Ridge, 6515 Ringgold Road. Reach out to Ronnie Chat69 for more information about the lunch gathering or the Skywarn training class. The Kids Net will be held this Saturday evening. It has been bumped to Saturday, February 10th at 7 p.m. So luckily that is this week, and I hope the kiddies are excited. Update your calendars, get the kiddos ready for another fun Kids Net this Saturday. This is a great opportunity to engage our youth in the magic of radio and prepare them for the use of the network in case of an emergency or just to develop that communication skill. Let me break. The 42nd annual Dalton Amateur Radio Club Hamfest is always on the fourth Saturday in February. This is a great opportunity to visit many of our favorite radio vendors and to explore the Boneyard. We hope you'll visit the Dalton Hamfest on Saturday, February 24th, opening at 8 a.m. For more information, search for Dalton Amateur Radio Club on Facebook. If you have any questions, suggestions, or spicy announcements for us to catch up on, send me a note at kate@NGGMRS.org. We are North Georgia GMRS Network. This is WRMR 367, Atlanta 751. My name is Kate, and now it's time for Julie's tips. What do you have for us this week, Julie?
Well, thank you, Kate. This week we will talk about PL, CTCSS, and DCS tones. Something a lot of new users struggle with is understanding how tones work. PL tones is a generic phrase that encompasses CTCSS, DCS, and other tone squelch systems. When you hear people mention PL tones, they could be talking about any of these tone squelch protocols. They have different names, and they may work in a slightly different ways, but they all serve to filter out unwanted traffic from your radio. The joke is that PL stands for private line. Of course, there is no privacy in two-way radio. By including a sub-audible tone with your transmission, you can tell another radio to open its received audio. Both radios need to have the same tone programmed, and when they do, you will hear only the radio traffic that includes that sub-audible tone. Repeaters work the same way. The repeater will ignore everything it hears on its tuned frequency unless it also hears that sub-audible PL tone. When it hears that PL tone, it will engage its transmitter and repeat what it hears. When it transmits its received message, it includes the same sub-audible tone. Users with the correct tones programmed will hear only messages that include the programmed sub-audible tone, and they will access the repeater when they transmit with a sub-audible PL tone. Let me break. Sub-audible tones are basically tones that we don't hear, which makes them sub-audible. The radio receiver uses the tone, then filters it out before playing it on the speaker so we don't hear the underlining tone. DCS tones are digital in nature and would sound unpleasant if we could hear it. We prefer CTCSS tones, which stands for Continuous Tone Coded Squelch System. But in some cases, where we experience frequent interference from non-members, we've found that interference is often eliminated with DCS tones. DCS stands for Digital Coded Squelch. Rather than try other CTCSS tones and find we get interference again, we prefer to go straight to DCS tones to minimize the trouble the membership has in reprogramming radios. If we have to change a tone, we'd like to change it only once. There's a lot to unpack here, so if you have any questions, this week's net will be a great place to ask. By understanding how the tones work, it might help us understand how programming works in our radios. These are just a few of the preferred practices of North Georgia GMRS members, and these procedures are how we become the best operators on the nation's largest, most advanced linked repeater network. And if you have any questions or suggestions for new user tips and operating procedures, send me a note at julie@NGGMRS.org. We are North Georgia GMRS Network, and this is WQIR 514, Atlanta 947. My name is Julie. Good night, everyone.
Well, good night, Julie. Thank you for the tips this week. and good stuff. And there's a lot, like you mentioned, a lot to unpack there. And how the tones in our radios work is often very confusing and very misunderstood by a lot of folks. For instance, did you know that if you have a distant, weak signal that has the tone, and you open a repeater up, somebody else without that tone that's closer to the repeater than you will step on your signal and be able to transmit over the repeater, even though they don't have tones programmed on their radio. So that's something a lot of people don't understand is how sometimes we get traffic on the repeater that wasn't necessarily meant to be there, but it can happen under certain circumstances. As long as a signal out there has that correct PL tone, the repeater will open up and repeat whatever it hears, even if it's hearing things that aren't necessarily meant to be repeated over the air. All right. Well, with that, where are we at, Mike? You've got the script. Are we ready to
break?
Yes, we're ready to break.
I think we're going to break.
You were 4 seconds away from hitting it.
I think we were cutting it close there.
Well, that's what I'm told, but there's no one that breaks timers more than I do.
Not in this studio anyway.
Yeah.
Next up, I think we should take some more check-ins.
All right. Well, I guess we'll do that. Let's see if we can find any Zello check-ins. Any Zello users wishing to check in to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net? Now's your time. Net Control standing by.
Your wifey's in the live stream.
Is she? She checking in?
It's Chattanooga 19, WRZP 299. I'll be checking in and checking out. Jack and Knoxville.
Not on Zello, anyway.
All right. Make a long, awkward pause there for any potential Zello check-ins. I know sometimes that app can be a little bit clunky to use, but I want to go ahead and acknowledge what we have at this time. We have Blue Ridge 64. Melissa is checking in from YouTube. Thank you for that check-in, Melissa. Glad to have you along. And we have, through Zello, Chattanooga 19 Jack in Franklin. Oh, he's not in Franklin.
I don't know where he is.
I think he's in Chattanooga. Jack is in Chattanooga or very near that area. I think he's originally from Franklin or something to that effect. So, Jack, we've got you in the log as in and out. And that's all we have at this time. So let's continue with check-ins from any repeater other than Flagship. Net Control standing by.
This is
224 Chattanooga 110, checking in and checking out tonight.
Does he go by Jim?
I think that's what he just said.
I didn't hear it.
This is Chattanooga 53, WRZM 974, checking in, checking out, and need to know what the code tone is, if it's correct on the website. Thank you.
this. Atlanta 1415 WRNR 684. Timo in Atlanta, listening in and checking out. This is WSAF 252 Chat 46, William in Rossville. Checking in, checking out.
I'm glad he's not Chattanooga 420.
Why?
Because then we would have Atlanta 420,
Yeah.
William in Roswell, and Chattanooga 420, William in Rossville.
Yeah, that would be confusing.
That would be confusing.
That wouldn't be confusing at all. All right, let me go ahead and acknowledge this round of check-ins. We have Chattanooga 110, Jim in Ringgold, in and out. Also, we heard Chattanooga 53, Doug in Hickson, in and out. We'll get you an answer to that question along the way, Doug. Atlanta 1415, Timo in Atlanta is also in and out. And Chattanooga 46, William in Rossville is in and out. Let's continue with check-ins from any repeater anywhere. Net control standing by.
What was that? Thank you.
Checking in and checking out.
Didn't get that one either. That one.
Holly Springs.
Yeah, all right. We got a little double right there with the last check-in. We heard Atlanta 589, Don in Kennesaw. Don, we've got you in the log as in and out. And there was a Holly Springs check-in that doubled right there, but we didn't get a TAC number. So Holly Springs check-in, if you would please come back.
This is Holly Springs check-in, Atlanta 725, WRNV 615. Checking in and out. Sorry about the double.
All right, we show Atlanta 725, David in Canton. Should we correct that to Holly Springs as in and out?
Either one works. Canton's the mailing address, but I live in the city limits of Holly Springs.
All right, we've got you in the log. Okay, let's go ahead and continue with check-ins. One at a time, please. Be careful that you don't double. A good way to do that is to key the microphone and say this is. Unkey the mic and listen. If you hear no traffic, then continue with your check-in. If you do hear traffic, then wait until that traffic clears before you attempt your check-in again. Net control standing by.
This is ATL 21, WRJ 508. Actually live in Canton, but I've got an ATL call sign.
I don't know if that.
This is WRKK 629, Chattanooga 84, checking in.
No dice. I heard the W. That was it.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge these two check-ins right here. We have Atlanta 2-1. I guess that would be, is that Brian? In Canton is in with us tonight. We'll give you a chance to correct that if that's wrong. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say the middle name or the first name. Got Chattanooga 84 Jim in Hickson is also in with us tonight. There was another check-in immediately following Jim that was just buried in the noise, and we just weren't able to make any of that out. So you'll have to make an effort to improve your access, your signal into the repeater in order for us to be able to make that. As it is, it's not worth even trying again because we just couldn't make out much more than just a voice unable to discern any of what was said. So we'll continue taking check-ins from any repeater anywhere.
This is Atlanta 2-1, but the first name is spelled as you read it, Byron or Kevin, doesn't matter, but it's not Brian. And I'm WRJ 508 Net Control. Thank you.
Well, that's way wrong.
Yeah. WO.
This is WRQG806, Atlanta 557, Ed in Kennesaw, checking in and out.
That may be a renewal issue.
Let's go to the log.
Yes, it absolutely is.
So you have Byron? Or you don't?
He didn't renew.
Oh.
Atlanta 2-1, what you pull in the log is accurate.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's formally Atlanta 2-1.
All right, so we're going to start off with double nickel tonight.
55.
Or is it going to be 56?
Where's Atlanta 7-3 with his burnt hamburger?
I don't know. We often hear him before the net, but not during. Okay, we heard Atlanta 557 Ed in Kennesaw as in and out. And we'll go ahead and close our check-ins here. And there'll be an opportunity for late check-ins once we complete the roster. But at this time, I think we're going to go to the top and begin our conversations. McDonough 22 is first, but before we get going, again, our topic tonight is PL tones. And by PL tones, that kind of encompasses all of the tones that you might use in order to gain access to a repeater, or also in order to just kind of isolate your signal in simplex mode between two radios. So like if you're on a channel and there's a lot of chatter and you don't want to hear the kids with their sirens and their Roger beeps and all that stuff, you can plug in a tone on the radios that you're using locally, even in simplex, and then that will filter out all of that other nonsense. The only thing you'll hear are radios that are transmitting with that same tone that you have.
So is it like encryption? Is it private?
Well, no.
Radio
is never private. Two-way radio is always public, and anybody that can hear the signal can find the tones and be able to use those tones to listen in.
So anything I don't want other people to hear, I shouldn't say.
It's kind of like posting things on Facebook. If you don't want the world to know, don't put it on Facebook. And all of the efforts that you might make to say that this message is private, it's not.
It's not.
It's broadcast publicly, and the PL tones don't really protect your privacy in any way. And if that's your expectation, you probably need to use something like a cell phone that has a much higher level of encryption, but still probably is not untraceable or untappable. If someone had a need to get into your communications with your phone, I'm sure it can be done. I don't really know how. It's going to take more than a scanner.
I don't think we're meant to know how.
But
they don't want us doing it.
But I think there is some level of private communication available on a cell phone. But again, it is just another radio. So those signals are out in the air and they could be intercepted. And with the right technology, they could be decrypted. All right, Jeff, did you have anything you want to add?
I think we should break, and then let's break down the whole PL tone thing a little bit better. So the easiest way I've found to explain it is, let's take a repeater as your house. To get into your house, you need the address, which in our case would be the frequency. To also get into the house, you need the house key to unlock the door. So think of that PL tone like the house key. That unlocks the door. However, once the door is unlocked and open, now anybody can come in until that door is shut and locked again, which then would require the PL tone, or aka the house key, to open it back up again. So a PL tone works exactly like a spring-loaded door. You need the key to open it, and when it's open, anybody and everybody can come in. And then it springs back shut once the carrier drops. Is
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think that draws a really clear picture. So with that in mind, what do you think? Should we pick up the roster and go?
Wasn't there that other thing that Gary asked us to mention?
Well, yeah. So let's get into that here. I was kind of thinking we'd throw that in along the way, but let's go ahead and get into that. And that is basically this: if your communication over the network is in any way controversial, then it is in fact in violation of the MOU that we agreed to when we became members of North Georgia GMRS Network. So, if somebody is upset by something that you've said, then you need to stop. If somebody disagrees vehemently with something that you said, then you need to stop. If anything that you've said creates controversy or drama or any sort of a disagreement amongst members, that conversation needs to end right there and go no further. And to continue that conversation puts your membership in jeopardy. So let me say that again. To continue a controversial conversation on the air on the North Georgia GMRS Network will put your membership in jeopardy. I hope that's clear. I hate to have to go through this, but it seems as though it's necessary at this time. And we just want to make sure that... see, here's the thing. If you're saying things that are controversial or argumentative on the air, that serves to drive people to turn the radio off, or if they're brand new and they've just discovered the network and they hear this, they're going to think, oh, this is CB radio all over again. Mm-hmm. That is not the culture that we're going to cultivate here. We're not going down that road. And if that means that we have to sever a relationship with someone, that's exactly what we're prepared to do. We are not going to be CB radio on the North Georgia GMRS Network. That's not going to happen as long as we are on the watch. And that position is supported by Gary and by myself. I don't care for that either. So we really want to foster an open and welcoming and friendly relationship. We want this network to be something that you're comfortable having play with your children or grandchildren in proximity. And if we're talking about subjects that are controversial or adult in nature, if we're going to talk about bad guys or bad people or people doing bad things, no, that's not going to happen here. We are going to remain an open and friendly and welcoming an environment as best we can. Time to break. So I just wanted to get that out there and make sure that that is understood. It's an unpleasant thing to have to bring to the network, but here it is, and just we will protect the integrity of the network, and we'll take action if it's necessary. So if anybody was offended by conversations that took place today or bothered by that, just know that it is our intention to put a stop to that, and we're not going to have that on our network. So appreciate you. I appreciate you letting me spend time on that unpleasant tone. With that, let's continue on. So let's go ahead to the top of our list and see if McDonough 22 Tim in Stockbridge has any questions or comments about tones and how they're programmed and how they're used with repeaters.
good afternoon, or good evening, I should say, net control there. I was just thinking, it occurred to me, some people might ask, well, why do we have tones? Why aren't the repeaters just open where we can key our mic ups on the correct frequency and talk through the repeater? And so it occurs to me we have about 20 repeaters online right now. There are only 8 repeater pairs. That means there are only 8 frequencies that we are allowed to have duplex conversations on, that is to use a repeater for. So those PL tones, like you take up around Lookout Mountain, Chattanooga, Fort Mountain, Georgetown, Watkinsville, not like that, but anyway, all those up there clustered together, and you got Fort Mountain, Flagship are close together, so the PL tones allow us to separate, even though they're on different frequencies. They give us a little bit more ability to have all those repeaters close together. And also, it just locks out traffic from going up and down the highways and the roads and everything, I would assume, although they might not be transmitting on the repeater input. But anyway, that was my thought, and I think Julie covered it pretty good as far as explaining the PL tones and what you guys have said so far. So I really don't have a lot more to add than that, so I'll toss it back to you guys.
Well, that's a great point, Tim, and I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, you're right. The use of tones protects us in a number of ways. And first and foremost, as you mentioned, the limited number of repeater pairs that are available make it necessary for us to segregate the network by using tones. But just imagine, many of us have heard, and I keep going back to this, the kids on their radios with the Roger beeps and with the siren sound, and we always hear a lot of this right after Christmas, and we hear a lot of it right after holidays. Kids get a new set of radios from Walmart, and by default they make all these sounds and siren noises. So if we didn't have tones to filter that base level nonsense out, that would be carried by all of our repeaters every time one of those signals came within proximity of a repeater, and that would get really tough to tolerate.
That sounds like chaos.
Yeah, especially when there's a couple of kids, in a neighborhood bouncing sirens back and forth off of each other, and then they come back with silly one-word phrases or two-word phrases, and then oftentimes it divulges from there. If you get a couple of children in the neighborhood playing on a radio, eventually they'll start cussing at each other. So I can't tell you how many times I've seen that very scenario play out in this neighborhood right here. So we don't want to discourage the kids from using their radios, and they can use their radios, and they can cuss at each other, and they can play the Roger beeps to their heart's content, and that's a good thing, because we want to encourage young people to come to enjoy the radio network. But without having a parental structure there to guide them in the use like our members would do, it becomes very chaotic. So I'm not suggesting that we don't want kids on the air. We just don't want unsupervised kids on our repeaters. Supervised children, or children who are well behaved or are capable of conducting themselves well, are absolutely welcome on the network. And in fact, I believe the evening after tomorrow evening, we'll be encouraging youth to participate on the air. Jeff, do you think Teddy will be part of the youth check-ins?
I think you got a better shot at Sterling than Teddy. At least Sterling uses words.
Yeah, either one would be great. But don't forget, it's okay if your children are unfamiliar with how to use the radio. It's okay to coach them. So Kate can help Teddy with his words for Saturday's YouthNet.
Sterling would probably just ask a bunch of people, how are you?
Yeah.
That's our favorite thing to do.
So that would be fantastic. But yes, we love to hear children on the air when they're well guided and supervised by an adult. So, but good stuff, Tim. Thank you for that reminder of PL tones and why we have them instead of just having free range repeater radio. Who do we have next?
We have BR549, Uncle Mike, somewhere up around Cherry Log. Let's see what he has for the net tonight.
Always an interesting tone.
Oh, yes.
He's going to pause the live stream and get to the radio, so give him a minute.
Yes, sir, Mike. Uncle Mike was over flipping meat in the oven. It's got to be turned every now and then. I heard the subject of tonight's net, and then I immediately thought of another usage of that word, and then just immediately suggested an alternative meaning for that word, but I'm going to include it anyway. Tim and Julie both explained tone. One thing that I had a hard time grasping when I got started was there's received tones and transmit tones. Sometimes in programmers you will find you got to set the sort of tone first. Pardon me, let me take a break. And then there is some confusion about, well, is it a receive tone or a transmit tone? A lot of programmers have an option, and that option that saved me from a lot of trouble was gosh, I can't think of it now. Squelch tone. If your programmer has the option to use squelch tones, then go ahead and use that. That means it'll use the same number for both receive and transmit. And the programmer may not show you two places to put the number, but if you select set squelch tone, it'll make a column for it and fill it in automatically. I hope that didn't confuse the issue. I'm much more relaxed about the kind of tone my mama used and explained to me about ill-mannered tones and rude tones. And although I didn't hear anything today, but then I wasn't on the radio much today, last night I heard a couple of examples that someone was receiving assistance from one of our favorite users and refused to answer his questions and just was totally dismissing everything he said. And sometimes if you use the wrong that kind of tone, it won't do you too much good either, because the friendly voice at the other end of the radio will soon tire of your ill-mannered tones, and in which case, I hate to admit it, but we're all human. Let me take another break here quickly. We're all, some of us, like that old fellow that lives up in Cherry Log, is a bit more human than most. I'll just quit trying. And if I quit trying to educate you on the proper use of tones, if you speak ill of me, your radio may never work, and you know what, I won't care. So you got to use, when you get the option, use squelch tone. It puts the same tone in both of the boxes, and always use that. I say it's going to be a good night, gentlemen. I thank you for taking my call. Hope y'all have a great network. Y'all pay attention and learn something. Back to net control.
Well, fantastic. That's great stuff, Uncle Mike. Glad to hear your advice. The squelch tone setting, and I guess that's something that we should maybe unpack a little bit further. So, when your radio, in order for your radio to activate the repeater, your radio has to transmit the correct tone for that repeater. And those tones are available on our website, NGGMRS.org. If you scroll down to, what's it called, Jeff?
Repeaters. It's the round circle of the...
with a tower.
With a tower, and there's the link for it right under there, and you'll find the programming chart. And that programming chart is the most current information for all of our repeaters.
Including...
the Cades Cove repeater.
Yes. So, if you want the latest information, because the Cades Cove tone did change when that tower moved, and so if you want the latest information for the Cades Cove repeater, it is available now. For some time it wasn't, but it is available now on the website on that programming chart. But as I was saying, so when you key up your radio has to carry not only the carrier and your voice, but also that sub-audible tone in its transmitted signal to the repeater. So when a repeater hears that tone, the correct tone, then it will activate and rebroadcast your signal. So on the other end of that, if the user at the other end has no tones programmed into their radio whatsoever, they'll hear the signal, but they'll also hear everything else, and they'll hear the kids with the Roger beeps and the siren sounds. They'll hear all that stuff, and maybe that's okay. But if you don't want to hear that stuff and you only want to hear what the repeater is sending, then you need to also program your tone onto the receive side of your radio. And so Uncle Mike says that if you use that tone squelch setting, that when you enter the value in one field, it'll automatically populate it in the other, so that your channel will have the same tone for your transmit and receive. And that's the way that the North Georgia GMRS repeaters are all programmed. If you look at that chart, it'll show you the same tone in both columns. So,
well, there's another caveat to that also.
Go ahead.
So with tone squelch, by using the tone squelch setting, you are also only allowing the squelch on the radio to open with the correct tone. Whereas if you don't use tone squelch, depending on the radio model, any carrier will open the squelch on that radio as long as it's on the right frequency. So the other advantage to using tone squelch is that's what also determines when the squelch opens.
So what is squelch? What does that word even mean?
Squelch is going to be the signal to noise ratio filter. So if the signal is stronger than the noise floor, based on whatever squelch setting you have, is when it's going to open the squelch and allow you to hear the audio. So if you turn your squelch setting way down low, you may hear all the snow and the noise floor and all that in the background because you have it set at that lower level. Whereas if you start increasing your squelch level, the carrier has to be so strong before it'll allow audio to pass through the speaker and you hear it. Did I explain that well?
No, I think that was an excellent explanation. So, and that's one thing that I don't think we covered at all during the Julie's Tips segment, is just what is the definition of a squelch and how does that work? So, very good explanation.
And one more little caveat to Uncle Mike's ramble there, if you will, is not all radio programming software calls it receive and transmit tones. And Kenwood is the prime example of this. They use the phrasing encode and decode. So don't get confused in semantics. It's still the same function and doing the same thing, just the manufacturer calls it something different. Encode would be your transmit tone into the repeater. Decode would be your radio decoding that tone on your receive.
Yeah, manufacturers are always looking for catchphrases and things that they can trademark and things that they can set themselves apart from the rest of the pack.
There must be those marketing guys.
Yeah, those marketing
it's
guys.
those
marketing guys.
Yeah, that beat them with a stick. All right, then. So good stuff. And, you know, the other thing that Uncle Mike touched on is just, you know, respect and courtesy with one another. If you ask somebody for some help and you're rude with them, you're probably not going to get any more help down the road. Let's break. So, you know, it's that do unto others as you'd have them do to you. Treat people nice. Treat people the way you expect to be treated, and we'll all get along here. So, and that's what we're looking for. We want to foster that relationship here. We want this to be a network of people that we can count on for good information and good conversation. And with that, we develop friendships and relationships rather than contacts. Okay, who's next?
Next in the log, we have Rome 313. Jay in Rome. Let's call out to him and see what he's got for the net tonight.
I think Jay's made a few relationship connections here on the network.
That's right.
Yeah, he doesn't call it a group. He calls it a family.
He calls it a family, yeah.
Jay, what you got for us?
Yes, sir. When I first started in the radio business, I was younger in my days with CBs, and, you know, long story short, there wasn't PL tones or anything like that. Just everybody got in with everybody. And then I advanced up to the FRS. I didn't know anything about the privacy channels, and it wasn't until later on in my years when I was introduced to GMRS to learn about, you know, the PL tones and all that. Then I understood what the privacy tones was. You know, it locked out other channels, and like both of y'all and a lot of other people have said, you know, you don't have to worry about hearing other people. But like Justin says, we have a lot of kids around here that do have the FRS radios, and they do get on ours. And like I said, we hear some controversial conversations and some interesting ones. So it made me understand it, enlightened me a lot more, and now I understand them. And I'm a little grateful for it. That way I know now, you know, the only ones that's going to hear what I have to say or anything are going to be the ones that my radio opens up to. And that way, if I hear any conversation back, it's because I know that they heard what I had to say and not, you know, Billy, Bob, or Fred, you know, from, you know, around wherever I live. So, I mean, I really think they're interested, and I think it was whoever created it, it was a good idea. And I enjoy learning more and more about, you know, things like that with the GMRS and other things as well. I mean, it's wonderful, and I enjoy hearing people and the conversations and everything, but every now and then I do get a little chuckle out of the kids, you know, when they get on them. But I am more understandable now as to what they are, you know, than I was, you know, before.
Yeah, Jason, and I suppose that does ring true. You know, back in my days on CB radio, of course, in CB radio there are no repeaters. It's just, you know, kind of whoever can hear your signal, that's the limit of your contact. Whereas in this network, you know, we have a vast network of linked repeaters, so your coverage footprint is way more than what you would have operating CB. At least operating CB legally. So we we do enjoy a really nice infrastructure of a linked repeater network here. And that's something to keep in mind too, is that when you are on the network, there's a lot of folks that are listening. Even though you may not hear all those folks that are listening on the air, there's lots of people that have a radio sitting on their desk or in the cab of the truck or in the garage or in the workshop, and it's monitoring, and they're listening throughout the day, and they're hearing that traffic. And if it's just garbage and noise, they'll turn it off or tune it out, or they'll look for something else. But if it's worthwhile, meaningful conversation, and it's not antagonistic or argumentative, then it can be constructive, and it can be very enjoyable to listen to those conversations throughout the day. Even if it's just a, hey, how are you? That's still, those are the things that foster relationships and set us apart from other radio groups. So that's good stuff. And Jason, I want to say that you in particular have been, a model of what building relationships are all about. I hear you on the air very often, very quick to offer a good quality radio check and a good assessment of how someone, not just that the fact they made it into the repeater, but the quality of their sound. Sometimes you're a little generous, and you identify the best qualities of their sound while maybe not advising them of some of the shortcomings, but that's okay. We know where your heart is, and I just, you are a fine example of the kind of operator that we want on North Georgia GMRS.
That's right.
So I just want to make sure that you are aware of that, and that you're appreciated here. Next on our list, we have Chattanooga 69, Ronnie in Las Vegas. Ronnie, do you have any comments about CTCSS or DCS tones, or PL or PO tones?
If you're looking this way, tilt that mic a little bit. Get into it a little bit more. When you go to the computer, you're good and loud, and then you fade away.
All right.
That's better.
We might have lost Chat 69.
Did we exceed his attention span?
We might have.
Chattanooga 69, are you still out there? All right, we're going to go ahead and show Chattanooga 69 as in and out, and he can spend the rest of his evening with his fuzzy slippers as we continue on our roster here. Next on our list is Atlanta 610 David. He said he was on the Columbus machine, but it shows here that he's from Marietta. Wherever you are, David, do you have any comments about PL tones?
Hey guys, yeah, I'm actually on the Columbus machine tonight. I am unfortunately not home in my own bed, so playing down here in South Georgia a little bit. But yeah, I just wanted to maybe reiterate the programming a little bit, especially with new users, about having that receive tone active. I have noticed several instances of possibly new guys that are coming on that are just learning that fail to put that receive tone in, and they end up hearing traffic. Let me break.
I've done that.
They end up hearing traffic that may be coming from simplex or whatever, and try to answer it on the repeater. And just because they're not aware of that receive tone filtering out that other traffic. And on the other side of that as well, there are people that intentionally run with that receive PL tone open just to monitor for simplex traffic. And that you have to be very aware of what's going on to make sure you're not trying to talk to the wrong people.
Oh, yeah. Guilty as charged. I have absolutely done exactly what you described. Responding to traffic on the radio that I thought was repeater traffic when in fact it was simplex traffic. And I think it was Houston that clarified to me that what I was hearing wasn't coming on a repeater, and he was hearing my conversation through the repeater, but only my half of it. And Houston had realized that I must be talking to somebody who's talking to me on simplex, and so absolutely it can happen. And I mean, there's not really any harm in it other than folks on the network hearing half of a conversation is not very enjoyable. But you're right. If you're going to run your radio intentionally without a received tone, you can do that. And as somebody pointed out, I think on the Facebook page, that if you have the tones programmed on your radio, you might miss a simplex call where somebody needs help. There could be an emergency, and you'll miss that because the tone has filtered out all that simplex traffic. But if you're not using that tone, you really have to be careful and identify whether or not what you're hearing is on the repeater or it is simplex, and that can be challenging. It's not obvious. Well,
that's especially on our network. We don't have a squelch tail or a beep at the end of the transmission for the repeater, so it could be hard to know if that traffic you're hearing is coming from the repeater.
Right. So very good point. I appreciate that, David. And with that, we've got a big old list of in and outs. What do you think, Mike? Are you up for it?
I'll run through them.
All right.
Let's break first, just because I can't see our countdown timer. Jeff broke it.
I did. I broke my own computer.
Oh, you got it back. All right. We're going to run through a string of in and outs.
Yeah, I didn't break it this time.
No, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. We have Gainesville 417, in and out. Gainesville 58, Jonathan and Oakwood, in and out. Next we had Atlanta 780, Houston and Austell, in and out. And Noonan 51, Clinton and Noonan, in and out. Next we heard Atlanta 20, Mike in Cartersville, in and out. Atlanta 12, Jay in Calhoun was in and out. We had CW33, Tom and Bogart, in and out. And then we had Dallas 64, Josh and Dallas, also in and out. Next we heard Dallas 37, David and Bowdoin Junction, in and out tonight. And Dallas 49, Doug and Hiram, in and out. Dallas 20 and Dallas 21, David and Lisa in Southwest Paulding County, both in and out with us tonight. And Dallas, sorry, I got off one there. Chattanooga 162, Larry in North Chattanooga, in and out. After that, we heard Atlanta 551, Shannon in Dawsonville, in and out tonight. And then Atlanta 637, Dave in Kennesaw, was in and out. Next was Dallas 290, Isaac in Dallas, in and out. And Atlanta 305, James in Atlanta, was in and out. After that was Atlanta 11, John in Canton, in and out. That was a long string of in and outs, but that fortunately brings us to a check-in, Atlanta 250. Dana, who's not in Dahlonega right now, we're going to call on you, Dana, and see what comments you have for the net tonight.
Dana's in Dahlonega. It's Chuck that's out of town.
Well, I'll
all
first
the
start
time
with
getting
good
Dana
evening,
and Chuck
guys.
mixed up.
Second call is, if I'm not in Dahlonega, where am I?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm up here on the hill. Anyway, I don't
Sorry,
have
Doug.
much to offer that hasn't already been said, except for the fact that for the new users, we have all been there, 100% of us. It's confusing.
Some of us still are.
The best thing I can say is to reach out to somebody you know that got you maybe into radio. Reach out to the person you buy the radio from, the store. They're all radio guys on the inside of those stores, and just like, well, I'm not going to throw a name out there, but they're all radio guys, so they'll be more than happy to help. And other than that, that's pretty much all I got. So back to you guys.
Go ahead.
Very good words, Dana. And yes, you're right. Some of us, well, all of us have been brand new at this at one point along the way, and some of us still are. Right, Jeff?
Sure.
He wasn't paying attention.
So, yeah, and, you know, I guess if you want to look for people that make mistakes on the air, you could look right here.
Yeah, just watch the live stream.
Just watch the live stream, right? I make plenty of them, and say the wrong thing at the wrong time or get words mixed up. It happens, and you know it's not that big a deal. We are able to get by with the mistakes because we don't live there. We keep moving, and you know that's one thing about this radio group versus a lot of others is. If you don't get it right, we'll coach you. We'll help you figure it out. We'll help you with the call signs. I know that there's been people that have come on that are brand new that have struggled so hard with figuring out, you know, the lingo, the cadence, you know, how do you open a conversation and things like that. And you know, we coach them and we coerce them and we even email them if we have to about, hey, you know, this is almost right, you need to do a little bit better, but you know, whatever it takes, we want you to be engaged and be a part of this, and we want to create that open and welcoming environment, and I hope that is what we achieve. And but yeah, everybody's brand new at this at some point, and some of us are brand new at it for a little while longer than others, but that's okay. As long as we're enjoying the radio and engaging in one another, that's what counts. So good stuff, Dana. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Glad to have you along. Did you have anything else?
Staying in the live stream.
He was.
No, sir, except for the fact what I was meaning is when you know, as far as the CTS, DCS, and tones in general, you know, if you're having difficulty, reach out to the people you bought the radio from. You know, I'm thinking you bought it new, and I will say the name this time, Chat Radio. Man, those people over there are awesome. They'll help you out, and you know, if you're fortunate enough to be able to snag Mr. Jeff there. What is it? The Cairn School of Electronics and Radio. Mm-hmm. He'll definitely help you out as well.
Oh yes, and I hear all the time the stories of the text messaging helpline that Jeff gets involved in. Apparently, he publishes his number somewhere. All sorts of people have got it and reach out to him for assistance and help. So appreciate you being that guy, Jeff.
I guess it was voluntold.
But there is help. There is help if you have questions and you're not sure where to go. You know, you can send an email to support@NGGMRS.org. We'll do the best we can. You just have to bear in mind that, you know, there's a lot of radios that have come out, and I bought my radios years ago, and I don't buy the newest radio when it comes out. I've got a pretty good collection of radios now. I don't really need any more. Well, I would like to have an 8180, but I don't need one. So that's one of those things that I don't need the brand new Alinco radio that's not even on the market yet, but one of us has our hands on it. I don't need another Anytone.
Yeah, but that's not mine.
I don't need another Anytone radio, but I was just thinking today, I've only got the one HT. You know, I need to get one for Julie.
Oh, here we go. Now it's Julie's fault.
Right. Well, I mean, what good is one radio if you're trying to talk simplex across the yard? You know, one radio is just... So anyway, there's if I bought another radio, I would buy one I'm familiar with that I know works well.
And that I know how to program.
And that Jeff can program. It's not that I can't program a radio, but
Why,
You know?
when you have Jeff?
Exactly.
Just hand it off.
Exactly.
He's working on my Kenwood.
And
Then you never know what messages you'll get in it.
well, that is the price that you pay. When I turn my radio on, the screen comes up and says, "Justin leaves me everywhere." And the other radio comes up and it says, "Please don't break me." Little Easter eggs that I get from my friends for programming the radio for me. But that's all good. That's good stuff, and I really enjoy it. Every time that message comes up on the radio. It brings back a story. So that's
The
that's
porta
good stuff.
potty story.
Porta potty.
Oh yeah. What a John.
We didn't hear from him tonight.
Not yet. All right. With that, let's go ahead and move on to Atlanta 3-1. Ron in Ackworth is in and out. Oh, I have to break?
Yes.
All right. Here we go. As well as Atlanta 403. Bobby at the Vortex is in and out. Atlanta 454. Steve in Lilburn is in and out. Atlanta 453. Janine in Lilburn is in and out. Excuse me. Atlanta 289. Grady in Jasper is in tonight. Grady, do you have any comments about PL tones, CTCSS, or DCS tones?
I really don't have any helpful things to add. The one question that I had was answered earlier. It was about purposely why or why not would you want to leave your receive tones open, and that was answered. And I just want to tell all y'all I appreciate everything you do, and I'll be.
Timeout timer, Gaten?
How long was it? 30? It might have.
All right, Grady, well, you dropped out there. I'm not sure if that was your timeout timer or battery failing or what that might have been, but appreciate your comments and understand that you had your questions answered already, in particular the question about why or why not to have a tone set on the receive for your radio. So we did talk a little bit about that, and there are probably more reasons than we covered, but those would be probably the primary reasons to choose to have a tone set on your receive or not to. If you don't have that tone set on your receive, your radio is going to play everything it hears, and maybe you want that in case there's an emergency call. That's not a bad idea. Just beware that you could be confused or tricked, as I've been, and respond to simplex traffic thinking that it came off of the repeater when it didn't. So that is one of the hazards that come, and your best friends will relentlessly pick on you and tease you for doing that.
Well, I think I want to use Grady's comment to give ourselves a plug here. For those that don't know, we are live streaming the net on our YouTube channel, and we typically do this every Thursday night. So if there's a topic brought up that, maybe we went over something too fast, or somebody asked a question earlier in the program, you can always go back and play them. There is a playlist on our YouTube channel just for the 2024 regional nets, and they are categorized by the topic of the net. So if there was something that you missed, or maybe something you didn't catch quite right in Julie's tips, you can always go back and rewind it and take notes if you need to, or what have you. There's always that playback option in most cases on our Thursday night nets.
And that is something that we should probably touch on just a little bit. Is typically we have begun the net at the very beginning of early check-ins, and for a few weeks we've had a little technical issue that made that not a good option for us. So because that's been a poor option for us, we've chosen to kind of kick back a little bit and begin the live stream when we begin the net at 7:30. And so we're skipping all of the early check-ins for the live stream. And that's a practice that's kind of on the table that we may continue doing that. No decisions have been made. It's just something we're in talks about doing. So, if you think that, my thought is this, is that the early check-ins is roughly 30 minutes of no content and just check-ins. And so there's very little interest in that portion of the net, other than if somebody wants to hear themselves and hear the quality of their signal, then that's a good way of getting that. So I would say this, that if that's something that you really value and we don't go back to live streaming the early check-ins, then just make your check-in after 7:30 and you'll be able to hear that. So again, no decisions are made at this point in time, but it is something that we're considering, is starting the net at 7:30 and
starting the live stream at 7:30.
Starting the live stream at 7:30 when the net starts.
Right.
And excluding the early check-ins from the live stream. Like I say, we've had to do that for a few weeks now for technical reasons. I think we are at a place where probably next week those technical reasons are past us, but we'll have to see how that plays. But look for that change that may or may not come. Jeff says I have to break. All right. Who wants to do this list of in and outs?
Michael,
Ugh, am I being voluntold?
you're the program director.
All right. Well, all good advice.
You made all those log entries. And
I
you
did.
read them.
I did. So we have another round of in and out check-ins. We'll roll through. Chattanooga 30, Jonathan and Hickson, in and out tonight. Gainesville 44, Joe in Cleveland, in and out tonight. Atlanta 1402, Todd in Sugar Village, in and out. And Atlanta 420, William in Roswell, it was in and out. We had Atlanta 532, Tom in Flowery Branch. Thanks for checking in tonight. We've got you in and out. Followed by Atlanta 77, Warner in Tucker was in and out. Next we heard Atlanta 538, Rob in Cumming, in and out tonight. And Atlanta 849, Pamela in Duluth was in and out. Also Atlanta 848, Ernest, we've got him as in and out as well. Next we had from YouTube, Blue Ridge 64, Melissa, checking in and out on the live stream. And then Chattanooga 19, Jack in Franklin was in and out. Next we heard Chattanooga 110, Jim in Ringgold, in and out with us tonight. And then Atlanta 1415, Timo in Atlanta was in and out tonight. We also had Chattanooga 53, Doug. Doug, hopefully we gave you some information on the Cades Cove repeater tone earlier that you were seeking. That information is, of course, on the website and has been updated for Cades Cove. Next we heard Atlanta 46, William in Rossville, in and out tonight. And Atlanta 589, Don in Kennesaw, was in and out. Next was Atlanta 725, David in Holly Springs or Canton. He was in and out with us tonight, which will bring us to Atlanta 21. Byron in Canton was in with us tonight. Byron, any comments that you have for the net regarding PL or DCS or CTCSS tones? He may have been in and out. And maybe I just didn't get it marked. All right, we're going to go ahead and show Byron as in and out, and that'll bring us to Chattanooga 84, Jim in Hickson. We've got you checked in with us tonight, Jim, so we'll call on you and see what you have for the net.
Well, good evening, everyone. This is Chattanooga 84. I don't really have a whole lot. You guys have covered it pretty well. The digital tones can be a little problematic, especially on the Midlands. Up here, the digital tone on Ottawa doesn't work on the Midlands. I don't know if that got mentioned, but I don't know what other radios that don't support some of the digital tones that North Georgia uses, so that might be something to talk or ask. I'm not really sure. But good night. Enjoy listening to you guys. I appreciate you picking me up, and I'll turn it back to you, WRKK 629. I'll be clear.
All right. Well, thanks for joining tonight and checking in, Jim. You make a good point. There are certain brands of radios, Midland being the one that I think a lot of us are familiar with, that have some limitations, especially on the digital tone side.
Are there any other brands that have that limitation?
Not that I'm aware.
Well, maybe not. Maybe that is the brand.
I think Midland is it. Midland's the only one that does not include or is capable of a complete set of tones.
Standard and non-standard tones.
Which tones are non-standard?
I don't know which ones. There's a table that I was looking at when I was building the radio programming guide, and I found deep in some of these manuals that there's standard and non-standard. But I don't have them memorized.
Okay, well,
I think there's something else here, too, that Jim mentioned and sparked my brain. When you're programming DCS tones, a lot of people get hung up on the N versus the I or R because of all the different radio manufacturers that call them different things. Again, we're getting into semantics, but in the North Georgia GMRS programming chart with the DCS tones, you'll see the N. That is for normal polarity. Some other manufacturers in their CPS will have an I or an R, and that would be for inverted or reversed. So all of North Georgia GMRS repeaters are DCS tones, or the ones with DCS tones are normal polarity with the N at the end. That's what the N is for.
That's a good point.
We didn't cover that, so DCS can be a little tricky. If you get the polarity wrong, it's still not going to work.
Well, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. And you're right. We hadn't really covered that. But back to the conversation about what are standard tones and what are non-standard tones. From our perspective, North Georgia GMRS, all the tones are standard. We've never really been limited in what tones that we could use until here in the last couple of years we've found that some of the tones that we've selected are not compatible with Motorola radio. Not Motorola, but Midland. That's frustrating because, do we have to change our network and our programming because of one manufacturer when it works for everyone else? That doesn't seem like the right answer here. So I would encourage folks that if you're using a Midland radio and there's a repeater you'd like to access but you can't because of that radio, reach out to Midland and ask them why they did that. It's certainly nothing more than a firmware change in the radio.
Yes.
So it's certainly nothing more than a firmware change in the radio, and I think that the manufacturer should be able to update their radios if enough people notify them that there's a problem with that particular brand radios. The other thing that bothers me about those Midland radios is instead of just having a straight input as to what the tone is, many times they are using a cross-reference chart.
Yeah, the lookup table.
And again, why put that extra step in there? That's
Well, it's like the Christmas story. You need the secret decoder ring.
Well, and that's what the manual is for. But
drink more Ovaltine, please. Isn't that how you get the secret decoder ring? Wasn't that it?
You're on your own on this one.
The movie's on for over 24 hours every year. All right, carry on.
All right, so in any case, I would encourage Midland users to reach out to the manufacturer and make them aware of that shortcoming, and that you have an application or a need for the entire table of DCS and CTCSS tones. All right, where are we at?
Well, thanks, Jem, for checking in. Next, we had Atlanta 557. Ed in Kennesaw was in and out tonight. We also had a YouTube check-in, a visitor joining us, Chris, on the YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in tonight, Chris, if you're still on the live stream. Appreciate having you. And then the last check-in that we have in the log is Atlanta 658 McKay, also checking in from YouTube. So that'll be an in and out. Thanks for joining tonight.
And we got Gary Davis in the live stream also.
Good to have Gary with us. I think he's been on the live stream the last few weeks.
Yeah, right. I owe Gary an email. We need to have a little chat.
Actually, so do I.
Oh, very good. All right, well, Gary, Jeff and I may be emailing you very soon.
And that's the end of the log.
Is that the end of the log?
That's the end of the log.
All right, so let's take one final round of check-ins. Anyone that would like to check in to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. One final round of check-ins. Also, any questions or comments? I think I heard a comment just a moment ago. Any questions or comments? The floor is open. Net control standing by. Railroad's blowing up.
From WRYI 478, Atlanta 551.
He's already in there, isn't he?
New, and when you get back to me after check-in.
That's Bobby.
So Shannon and Bobby.
WRWM 256, Atlanta 256, from downtown Pigeon Forge, checking in and out.
Fell off the chuck wagon.
This is Atlanta 138, WRCA 209, checking in and out. Comment.
Atlanta 138. Yeah, Robert.
Who was the comment? That was 849.
WRMA 965, Atlanta 964, Richard in Duluth.
Not sure if he's in or out.
This is Atlanta 95, WQIT 774, Ken and Jasper.
At 829 WROI 773, John incoming, check me in and out.
Did you get that TAC call?
I think that was... It sounded
Atlanta
like,
829.
Yeah, John Corey.
Thank you.
I'm in from Atlanta 551.
I got you in there, Shannon.
Oops. All right, this is our last round of check-ins, so I wanted to make an opportunity for everybody that needed to get in. So let me acknowledge what we have. We have Atlanta 256, Chuck in downtown Pigeon Forge. We have Atlanta 138, Robert in Auburn. Both are in and out. We have Atlanta 964, Richard in Duluth is in. We have Atlanta 95, Ken and Jasper also in. Atlanta 829, John incoming, in and out. And for comments, we have Atlanta 551, Shannon. We have Atlanta 403, Bobby. And we have Atlanta 849, Pamela. There was one additional comment in there, but all we heard was comment. We didn't hear a TAC number, so we're not sure who that was. We will make a space for you after Pamela. Let's go to the roster first. And so let's see here. We had Atlanta 256 Chuck in downtown Pigeon Forge. Chuck, how are the PLs at Pigeon Forge?
Well, I'm down in a hole right now. I might not be able to get through, but everything's working good here.
All right. Well, you're booming through, so it must not be a very deep hole. You might need to go down a little bit further.
An elevation in every mile here, going up to the condo, so I should be getting a lot. Great net. got a little bit, I missed the first part of it. Good. I'll let you get going with the comments. But have a good night, and I like the Ovaltine.
See, Chuck knew what I was talking about.
All right, Chuck. All right, well, thank you for that, and glad that we were able to get you in here tonight. And good signal, by the way, wherever you're at. So that works out quite well. Next on our list is Atlanta 138 Robert in Auburn, in and out, and that'll bring us to Atlanta 964 Richard in Duluth. Richard, did you have any comments for the net tonight?
I did. One thing I found kind of interesting right after Christmas was I actually turned off the tone squelch on all of my frequencies, and even set up my SDR receiver at home to scan some of the GMRS frequencies. And my wife and I got a kick out of hearing the kids on Simplex with their FRS and GMRS radios they had just got for Christmas. So that was my take on it. And I usually keep them on, but like I said, I just turned it off to kind of hear what was going on. It kind of died down a few days after Christmas. It was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
Back to you, Net. WRMA 965, Atlanta 964.
Richard, I can absolutely relate to that statement, and it is kind of fun to listen to the kids playing on the radios. Invariably it ends up being a battle of the Roger beeps, but when they're on there chatting, that's the most fun. And to hear the kids, oftentimes it's in the same household, back and forth. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Stuff like that it's fun to listen to the kids playing, and brings back a lot of youthful memories for me. So good stuff. And oftentimes that stuff kind of fades away once the batteries die. And once the batteries are dead, the kids kind of lose interest in the toy, and it ends up in the bottom of the toy box, and then probably at the Salvation Army sometime after that. But it is fun to hear them for the time that they are on the air. Thanks for your contribution tonight. Glad that you made that point. Next, we have Atlanta 9-5 Ken in Jasper. Ken, did you have any comments for the net?
Hi. Yeah, so I don't have any comments tonight. I just wanted to say I appreciate the net discussing all types of tones. I did have one question. If it was addressed earlier, I did miss the first about 30 minutes of the net, unfortunately. But my question was, on the North Georgia GMRS network, why are some of the repeaters set up with the DCS tones and others with the CTCSS? I was just curious if that was due to when they were installed and brought on air, or if there was another thought behind that. So, thank you.
Well, that is a great question, and I'm glad you asked, because no one else has tonight. And by the way, you had made mention, and so did Chuck, that you'd missed the very first part of the net. The good news is tonight's net was live streamed, so you can go back and replay that on YouTube if you want to see the first part of the net, or if you just want to play the whole thing and hear your comments towards the end of the net. It'll give you a good sense of what you sound like to us on the air. So I encourage you to, at a minimum, play back the YouTube live stream of tonight's net for that. But to answer the question, we'll go back to, I guess it was about 3 years ago, shortly after, well, even before Flagship was on the air, when the tower at Sassafras was up. In the summertime, we very often would get interference from flaggers, highway road construction flaggers, that would, at certain parts of the day and certain parts of the season, would be on the repeater. And so for whatever reason, these flaggers had programmed tones into their radios that were the same as the Sassafras repeater at that time. And so they would, for a week or two, be interfering with us. And they would even come on the air and challenge us that we're interfering with their operation because we're on their frequency. This is our frequency. What are you doing on our frequency? And obviously we're not. We're licensed GMRS users, and they're uninformed, probably FRS radios, and back then FRS radios were able to do GMRS for many years. You could buy an FRS radio that was GMRS capable. So I think that was just a lack of understanding of the rules and knowledge. I don't want to say ignorance, but that really is kind of the root of why they would be on our frequency with a PL tone that would activate our repeater and then complain to us about us interfering with them when actually it's the other way around. So that was the catalyst with Sassafras. And then when we moved to Flagship, it was determined that would be the great time to go ahead and engage a DCS tone on the Flagship machine so that we could negate that unintentional interference from those highway flaggers. Because we would get it. We got it for several years in a row. It'd be on for a week, and then they'd go away, and then we'd hear them again. And so it was significant interference, but it wasn't, the kind of interference that would shut us down, and it certainly wasn't worthy of any sort of an FCC investigation or anything of that nature. It was just interference. So the DCS tone is something that takes a little more effort for most people to program in, and what we found is that no one seems to bother accidentally programming their radios with DCS. So when we find a situation where we're getting interference on an analog CTCSS tone, when that occurs, we often then choose to move to a DCS tone as a result of that. So the thought is that we could go to another CTCSS tone, but if we have interference again on that tone, we're still going to end up at DCS. And now we've forced our membership to reprogram a couple of times. Let me break. So I hope that makes sense to you as to, we prefer the CTCSS tones, but when we need to change a tone to avoid interference, we're typically going to go straight into DCS because we don't really want to cause the membership to have to reprogram their radios. That can be challenging for some folks that can't do it themselves. It can be very inconvenient. Some folks need to have somebody program the radio for them, and it may take time for them to be able to drop the radio off or mail the radio away to have it reprogrammed.
Or bring it to a dealer and pay to have it done.
And some folks have done that. So I hope that you'll be able to find somebody within the network that can do it for you for free. But in some cases, that is what it takes, is go to the dealer and have the dealer reprogram that radio for you. If it's just a matter of you not understanding how to reprogram the radio, that's valid. And but reach out to some of your radio friends and see if you can find someone that is familiar with that particular radio and can help you reprogram it, because we do want to keep our members on the air.
Or just call Jeff.
Yeah, call Jeff. His number's out there somewhere. I don't know where, but apparently everybody has it. So, all right. Did that answer your questions?
Charging by the minute for my cell phone.
You're going to have a paid hotline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Twice his salary.
2 times 0 is still 0. Wait a minute now.
2 times 0 is still 0.
All right, that was Ken, correct? So next on the list is Atlanta 829. John incoming is in and out. That brings us to Chattanooga 179. Brett checking in on YouTube. We've got you in and out. Obviously, if he's checking in on YouTube, he won't be making a contact via RF.
He's by default in and out.
Oh, yeah, so by default, he's in and out. That brings us to our commenters that chimed in along the way. So we have 3 listed, and I know there's at least one more out there. So we're going to start off first with Atlanta 551, Shannon in Dawsonville. Shannon, you have comments for the net?
net, as always. Very informative. Yes, I wasn't planning to get on board, but couldn't help but hear this conversation about the Midland radio. So I wanted to address that, and maybe this will settle the issue for many once and for all. So as a Midland radio owner, I did a little research to try to find out, why only certain tones can be put in and some of the standard ones cannot be put in. Break. So what I found out is the FCC is who controls and who designates the 38 official CTCSS tones, and they number them 1 through 38, which is why you have that weird cross-reference index with Midland. And Midland, I guess, on a corporate level, somewhere high up above any of our pay grades, they've decided they will only allow the official use of the 38 official FCC codes in their radios.
Oh, well, that's an interesting point. I was not aware of that, but I knew that there were standard and non-standard tones. Just wasn't aware of Midland's reasoning. So thank you for sharing that with us.
So it's still a corporate decision.
Yes. For better or worse.
It's their choice.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know that the FCC has ever really said that these are the tones, because there's a huge table of tones way beyond. I think that the FCC may have suggested those tones. I'd have to go look at the rule and see what that said, but that's worth looking into a little bit further, I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Good stuff, Shannon. I'm glad you researched that and brought that to light. I didn't know that either. But again, I still think it's worth reaching out to the manufacturer and letting them know that as a Midland customer, you're missing out on the ability to use that radio in certain circumstances. So,
well, in this case, 2 repeaters on the North Georgia GMRS network.
That's right. So, all right. Well, good stuff. Thank you for that, Shannon. With that, let's see what Atlanta 403 has to offer. Bobby.
Yeah, hey guys, what's up? Just a few quick comments. Most of them are for Jeff, though. Yeah, you're right. It is drink more Ovaltine. And Dana was supposed to text you to move your mic because I couldn't get to see the flux capacitor all night. And the only other radio that I've come across that does not accept all the tones is the ancient Uniden SMU series, but nobody here is going to have one anyway. It's a 25-watt, 10-channel radio, and they're just historical, and I just collect them, and okay. And I see the flux capacitor fluxing. All right, thanks. That's just my comments for tonight, and that's about it. Great night tonight, guys. We'll talk to you later. WIG 241, Atlanta 403, clear.
The Uniden hysterical radio. Is that what he said?
That's what I heard.
I'm not sure what's so funny.
Drink more Ovaltine and hysterical radios. That's
yeah.
what I heard.
But all right. Yeah, I'm not even sure. You'll have to maybe take a picture of that radio and post it, because maybe somebody does have one. I mean, you're not the only dinosaur on the network. So there could be others with that radio. It'd be worth seeing. So post a picture of that, and we'll see if anybody recognizes it. I remember Uniden as they made scanners.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and they made cordless phones. Did they? Do you remember a Uniden two-way radio?
They made some bubble pack radios for a little while.
I don't remember. Yeah, and that
looks like they still do.
Yeah. So anyway, that's interesting. So Uniden and their hysterical radio. Thank you for that, Bobby. With that, we're going to move on to Atlanta 849, Pamela in Duluth. Pamela, did you have any comments for the net?
Yes, gentlemen. Hoping you can hear me. I'm trying to talk louder because I know we're having a low audio issue here and hope to have that taken care of next week. Great. We're talking about striking up conversations, what topics to use besides radio topics. Maybe you would have a net on that particular subject along with another topic and go in that, but people have some other details about that. Can you hear this all right?
I'm not sure where she's going. Is she asking what topics she can talk about on the air?
I think so. Or if she could suggest a topic?
Or did she want to have a net about net topics? I don't know. I kind of lost that also.
We're talking amongst ourselves, trying to sort out what your ask is, Pamela. We can hear you, but we're not quite sure we understand. Did you want to have a net about net topics? Help us to understand what it is that you're asking for.
Would be affirmative. Maybe this is along with some other subjects. Suggest, other than radio, what's a good topic, fun topics to talk about, maybe.
Fun topics.
Talk about topics other than radio. There's other fun topics.
Well, that's an interesting point, and as Mike pointed out, he's not sure of any topics outside of radio that would be fun.
I don't know of any such topics.
But I think I know where you're going, and there's lots of things we can talk about. We can talk about diet. We can talk about vacations. We can talk about vehicles. We can talk about things that we do, hobbies and interests that we have alongside of, or even outside of radio. Really, the only things that we don't want to talk about are things that are going to be controversial, or argumentative, or inflammatory. And I think we all know what kind of topics those might be. And I would suggest that if somehow someone ventures into a conversation that becomes uncomfortable, or it becomes controversial, or it becomes argumentative, then just stop. Just stop. That's all that needs to happen. Just stop that conversation and either close out and get off the air, or continue on the air, but change the topic into something that's more positive and less controversial. That's kind of the point that I was trying to make earlier, is that, we're not going to get to the place where this is a cussing match, or that mine is bigger than yours, or that I can beat you up. That kind of stuff isn't going to fly. This network is not going to devolve into the CB culture in any way. That's why we discourage the use of 10 codes. I know that 10 codes happen on the network, and it's insignificant, and it's not a big deal. But that is the first step down that road towards that CB culture and that CB language. And if you've been on the CB in the last 20 years, that's not something. If that's what this network were, I wouldn't be a part of it. I would end my relationship. That would be it. And we're not going to let that happen. So that was the point of that conversation earlier. If you want to know what topics are acceptable, topics that don't make you mad, topics that don't make others mad, topics that are not controversial or argumentative, are all topics that are okay. You can talk about cooking, gardening, many things that you can talk about. So I hope that answers your question, Pamela. And with that, we had one more comment out there. Let me break and see who that is.
Atlanta 305 WRC 256. I had a comment.
That's it.
Tacoma 25 and Tacoma 26 checking.
.13 was a comment trying to get in there.
.305 was your...
All right. We had a comment from Atlanta 305 and a comment from Rome 313. Let's go to James, Atlanta 305. Go ahead with your comment.
Yep. So I experienced, as we're talking about tones and everything, and being a nice netizen on the radio network, I discovered this weekend as I was going to different repeaters that if you have 4 HT, you're going to grab the one that doesn't have the Roger beep turned off. So just make sure your radios are set before you go wandering throughout the network.
You know, that reminds me. I once had, I think it was the Radiodity radio, where I'd gone in and turned off the Roger beep in the program, but apparently there was one more step I needed to take to actually turn it off. And so when I exited the program, the Roger beep was still on, and I didn't know that. And so I'm walking around with my radio, and I'm talking along, and the Roger beep is on. Of course, I don't know that it's on, but everybody else is hearing that. And so that was a little bit embarrassing. So I went back and I reprogrammed the radio again to turn the Roger beep off, only to find that I hadn't turned it off at all, and the Roger beep was still on. So I guess, you know, if you want to be sure that your Roger beep is off, maybe have a couple of radios and do a little simplex check yourself to be sure that that Roger beep is off. The trouble is that you can have Roger beep turned off in one program and on in another channel, and you might not fully have it turned off. But it's probably worth the exercise if you can do that. Alternatively, just come on and ask for a radio check, and folks will tell you if you've got it turned on. And, you know, it's not the end of the world. If you've got a Roger beep on unintentionally, you know, somebody's going to say something, and don't be offended by it. Just know that the next time you get a chance to program your radio, that you'll go in and turn it off. It's something that I'm certainly guilty of. So it happens, and I hear what you're saying. It was embarrassing. I think it was Bobby that called me out on it like 2 or 3 times when I thought I'd correctly programmed that radio and I hadn't. Is that right, Bobby?
But like Joe said, me and you were probably the only couple of 2 that were even on the radio back then.
Well, I think there may have been a few more, but yeah, and it's embarrassing nonetheless. And you called me out on it a couple of times, and I still have those radios, and I don't use them. I've unsuccessfully given them away a couple of times. They seems like they come back, so that's a testament to the quality of a radio. And I mean, at least you can give the GMRS, the BTEC GMRS V1 radios. You can give those away,
and people will keep them,
and people will use them. Yeah. But the Radiodity, you know, they're paperweights. So all right, with that, we're going to go ahead and move on. Thank you for that question, James. That was good content. With that, we're going to move on to Rome 313, Jason. Jason, what'd you have for comment?
Sir, it's talking about the Midlands radios. I'm on a Midland MXT500, and I had no problem programming in any of the digitals. It took me a little while to learn and to get the right download program from Midland, but once you get it in there and you kind of finger your way through it, I mean, I've not had any problem with accepting any code, but you got to make sure you look at number, and like you were saying, make sure it's, you know, the N on the end of it, not the IR, and just make sure you get that one in there. And I mean, I have no problem with any of our digital repeaters.
Oh, well, that's interesting. That's an interesting note. So I guess maybe a firmware update is the trick. Maybe that's laying out there, and Midland just hasn't made it widely known. But thank you for that information, Jason, and appreciate your participation tonight. So with that, we have two late check-ins. Check-ins are closed at this time, so what we found is that this thing will go on all night long if we keep taking check-ins. But we'll go ahead and acknowledge Toccoa 25 Paul in Toccoa and Toccoa 26 Donald in Toccoa. Paul, did you have any comments for the net?
Roger, I did. I got a couple. Number one, something I have noticed in the last couple of minutes I've here at the radio is when people talk, make sure you're about 2 or 3 inches away from your microphone so we can clearly understand what you're saying and you're not trying to eat your microphone and chew it at the same time. Number two, you're talking about comments earlier about being argumentative, and I found that in general any comment or anything can be made argumentative based on how the text or, the way anything is being spoken, kind of like, that comment you made about CB. If this was CB, you would go the other directions. Well, how can you judge something when it's not been presented itself? But every protocol is just another tool in the toolbox. And if you've ever worked in an emergency situation or event like a hurricane or tornadoes or whatever the case may be, CBs are very needy tool in a toolbox. Because if anybody has ever worked in situations, how are supplies brought into a disaster area? Number one, by semi, tractor trailers. So, based on, manpower or foot power or boots on the ground, so to speak, you may need that CB radio to talk to that truck driver so he can get them supplies. So, based on, whatever the, occasion may be, CBs are very valuable in communications. So, there's a lot of things CBs can be useful for, and that's just one of them. So, but other than that, I think you got a good net going, and I'll turn it back over to you. Also, break. Excuse me, coughing spell. Another thing is with the PL tones and DCS tones, you might want to keep in mind if you're in a very big what's the word I'm looking population neighborhood where there's kids or where there's a lot of maybe a lot of radio activity and not being able to program the decode, I think it's the decode, on the receiving end of your transmitters, because let's say for instance you program it and you're in a populated kid neighborhood and one of them kids gets in trouble and they have a FRS radio or a GMRS radio and they get in a position that, in a bad position where they're calling for help, and because you've got that PL tone or DCS tone programmed into your receive, you may not hear that kid calling for help. So, it has scenario. So, think about that sometimes. Somebody may be calling for help and you won't hear them because you've got that PL tone programmed, blocking them out, calling for help. So that's something else to think about.
Well, that's an interesting point, and that's one worth considering, Paul. If somebody is trying to call out for some assistance and you have your tone set on your receive, you might not hear that call. So that's a judgment call that everybody has to make on their own. Some of my radios have the receive open, but most of them do not. So for instance, the Tiki Bar two-way has the receive open. It will hear anything on that frequency, but that radio doesn't scan. And I've never been one to scan. I've got it tuned to the repeater that I want to hear, and so if somebody makes a call out on a frequency that I'm not tuned to, I'm not going to hear them that way either. So you can't really cover all the bases. I don't have a scanner. I don't particularly care to listen to scanners. I hate it when the scanner picks something up and you start to hear a conversation and it's gone, and it misses a portion of that conversation before it picks it up again. That drives me up the wall. I can't do that. If it'd pick it up and stay there, that would be. But I've used scanners in the past, and I don't really care for them. I've got a lot of experience with CB radio. Spent many years as an over-the-road truck driver. I'm well aware of what CB is, and I am well aware of the CB culture. And I'm here to tell you that is not a radio that you're going to play and have your kids or your grandkids listening to, because the language, because of the culture, because of the attitudes, and because of the illegal radio operators that are widely in use in CB radio. It's a culture that will not, I promise you, will not be a part of North Georgia GMRS. If a member begins to use that kind of language, those kind of attitudes, that member will be dismissed. Don't try me on this. This is not something that is coming specifically from me. This is from all of the North Georgia GMRS leadership. We all feel this way, and we are all strongly opposed to that kind of mentality and that kind of attitude, that kind of language. If you want to use CB radio, you're more than welcome to stay on the CB bands and operate in that band any way you wish. We're not saying that you can't do that. We're saying you can't do that here, on this band, on these repeaters, on this network. That's what we're saying. So if you want to carry a CB radio so that you can be engaged with truckers during an emergency, by all means do that. But again, that culture doesn't need to come over here. Now, understand there are truckers that pass through this area that have GMRS radios, and we've talked with several of them over the years. We had a trucker that made regular stops in the Atlanta area and would regularly communicate with us. He's now retired in the Chicago area, and he is in the leadership of developing a repeater network up there. And Curly, if you're listening, I hope things are going well for you up there. The trucking industry is alive and well. Not all truckers succumb to that. I used to be a trucker, and this is where I am now. I will not go back to that culture of that language and that attitude over the air and that treatment of others, and that mine's bigger, and none of that is going to happen over here. That's what we're talking about. So, and same thing with the 80 meter band. I mean, there's a lot of craziness that goes on there. That attitude, those conversations are not welcome here. This isn't going to be an open and friendly environment. Let me break. So with that in mind, let's move on to Toccoa 26. This will be our last member tonight, Donald in Toccoa. Donald, do you have any comments for the net?
Navy, he's just over here being my co-pilot. We just had to make a trip down to Gainesville and back, and we're glad to be back at Ponderosa, as they say, or the Happy Holler. So, but anyway, appreciate you keeping us company along the way and back home. So, and hope everybody had a good evening today and enjoying all this nice weather we've had over the last couple of days. And looks like the next few days are going to be make up for all this nice weather we had. But I guess when it rains, it pours, huh? Welcome to the South. What can you say? But if we didn't have the rain, we wouldn't have all this
beautiful stuff that God give us. But anyway, appreciate you calling in, and we'll turn it back to you. Tacoma 20 will be clear.
Getting 66 is our chickens tonight.
All right. All right, Paul. Well, thank you for that. And Donald, thanks for listening in tonight. Glad that you were able to ride shotgun there and make those miles go by. At this time, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. So this will conclude the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net tonight. We had a total of 66 chickens, including myself. Net Control will now be returning the repeaters back to normal use. Everyone who signed in should sign out, just like I said the other day at the end of a conference call. This is Atlanta 946, WQIR 514. My name is Justin.
This is WRWM 344, Blue Ridge 63, and my name is Mike.
And Atlanta 750, WRMR 367. My name is Jeff.
We are North Georgia GMRS Network, and we are clear.
Good night, everyone.